Welcome to the Torque and Horsepower Podcast. I'm your co-host, Eric Herbert.
And I'm your co-host, Alex Stursa. Today we have Ed. What's your last name, Ed?
Senf.
Okay. Yeah, see, I'm illiterate, so that would have been really easy. It sounds just like it's spelled.
It is exactly like it. Yeah, that's how you do it.
Perfect. Yeah, right on. Well, it's good to have you in here.
Thanks.
So, we didn't get any questions emailed in.
Not this round.
I'll remind the viewers and listeners to email questions. We can talk about pretty much anything. My work today, my job this week was, I guess you could call it race engine development. We've had some problem childs with wiring and engines and throttles. It's been a long week. That's why Ed's out here. He is our number one go-to tuner, engine electronics, whiskey drinking, steak tasting, whatever. He's a great guy to have around. Nothing dramatic this week. Nothing broke. We just don't have enough time.
Right.
We need more time. What about you?
My week's been pretty laid back. We had a couple of our contracts ran out, so I'm trying to get some more work for my Winnemucca guys. The biggest problem I have is a lot of the mines are requiring way more insurance than I want to buy, and like 90-day payment terms and all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to round up some other work without having to go to the bigger mines because I just don't want to deal with it. But other than that, we've been just daily grind stuff. Nothing too crazy. Did some motocross this weekend with the kids. That was fun. It was at the sandbox. So it was interesting to watch my 4-year-old ride a PW 50 through sand. Yeah, it's probably way more fun for me to watch than it was for him to do. So,
oh, man.
Yeah. But it was a good time.
Nice.
Picked up a bunch of kids, got sunburnt. It was fun.
Did your kids go, Drew?
Yeah, we were out there.
We didn't introduce Drew, the hammer, Miles. Hi, Drew.
How's it going?
We want to get Drew on this side of the camera, but he said that he gets nervous when he's being filmed.
I don't like talking in general. But at some point I'll be over there. Or just do another camera and I'll face it this way.
That's a good idea.
That's a really good idea, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, anyways, I was out there at the sandbox
Yeah.
on Saturday, which is practice day, but it's also the Stasic race day. So both boys gave it a shot. My oldest, he's 4 years old, and he did great.
He did really good.
He's ready for a bigger bike for sure.
It's 50 class time.
The little guy, he's 2 years old. He gave it a shot, but obviously really sandy, so he got caught up in a rut, and then he went down pretty quick, and then after that he was done.
Oh.
But
he tried.
He tried.
For a 2-year-old,
Yeah, he did
pretty
good.
Masher's in. Wait till he's 5.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
he's
He's going to be like,
Yeah.
can you put me on that 80? I can't reach.
Especially when he sees Big Brother on the 50.
For
it's,
sure.
It's going to be game on.
yeah, he's a go-getter for sure.
Yeah.
So, Ed, where were you born? Where did you grow up? And then, we'll do a Reader's Digest to how you ended up here.
Yeah, the quick abbreviated version. Born in Gary, Indiana, believe it or not. Didn't stay there too long. Moved to South Florida. We lived there when I was a kid, middle school aged. Then out to western Arkansas. Lived on a farm for a while out there. Moved to Georgia, where I've been ever since high school. And the quick and dirty is I went to Georgia Tech, thought I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. Wasn't great at that. did not have good grades in school. And I started turning wrenches to pay my way through college. And the mechanic in me took over, and I had a shop for a number of years, got into performance, all kinds of performance work. And somebody that was managing a parts store around the corner from us said, you know what you need here is a dyno. Because if you have a dyno, then you can check horsepower. And I said, well, I've never heard of such a thing, but I'm in. Let's buy a dyno. So we bought a dyno in 1998 and
Holy shit.
found out that nobody knew how to tune cars or do what they said they could do. And
Right.
I had to jump in and learn how to tune engine management systems and how to wire and program cars. We could fabricate all the cool parts. We could put a turbo system on anything you wanted, but then making it actually run right and live was a completely separate topic. And so people weren't doing it back in the 90s. And so I took it over and did everything, learned everything I could, started working with every engine management system I could get my hands on, read every topic, every book on the topic, and then built up a pretty good business there. Got burned out, had a bunch of guys working for me, about 10 guys in the shop, and decided I was going to sell it and do something else with my life. Quickly realized I had zero other skills, had no other
That's
skill
the same
sets,
boat I'm in.
had nothing that would earn me an income. And then I took a job at a race engine shop and started working with pro race teams doing engine development, powertrain controls, and worked in several different race series over the years. And so that's where I've been for 20 years now.
Was that Sunbelt?
It was Sunbelt Engines.
Sunbelt.
Yeah, Sunbelt Engines in Sugar Hill, Georgia.
Wow.
Yeah, we did. At one time, we had, I think, every Mazda engine in Speed World Challenge on Speed Vision.
Oh, wow.
We had most of the BMW engines in that series as well, and then we were doing Grand Am racing. It turned out to be a pretty good business for quite a while, and I got a great start there.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
your guys' Sunbelt's totally different than our Sunbelt.
We have Sunbelt rentals too.
Yeah,
out there,
that's one of my customers. Yeah,
Yeah.
the just shit green equipment everywhere. That's
Right.
that's the Sunbelt I'm used to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This was an engine shop,
Yeah.
and same deal. We got confused with them all the time.
Yeah, I
People-
bet.
When they try to return a forklift to your engine shop, it was like, well, we'll take it, but
Yeah, it's not
Probably
ours,
not
but
where you
we'll
wanna
take
be.
it. Yeah. You're gonna get a charge after this.
ME. I didn't real. I must have missed that. I thought more electrical school. I went to school for mechanical engineering too.
yeah, I thought that's
The
what I
three-
wanted to do.
the three of us.
And yeah, and that it seemed like a great idea, right?
Yeah, like I'm a builder. I want to build it. So if I was an engineer, I should be able to build it better.
Yeah.
I don't want to knock any engineers, but a lot of those guys can't build it better because they don't know how the fuck it works.
Right.
That's the struggle with engineering colleges that I saw when I was at Georgia Tech was there was zero hands-on. I grew up working on things. I worked with my hands, and I was putting myself through college doing mechanical work, and then you're in school with people who don't know what any mechanical device does, what they're learning,
Yep.
and why they're learning it. The application was not there.
Right.
Yeah, it was theory and draw it. This should work. But then, like, how are we going to put it together? Like, do you guys know what a rivet gun is? Senior engineering student, no. I was like, oh fuck, you're going to be graduated with an ME this year. Velcro? Like he kind of got the concept, but it was like basic stuff just escaped us, and it was that student that told me. He was on my team. He was a senior, and he's like, you'll never make it in a team because you don't work well with other people, and maybe this isn't the career path for you. And I was nice because I'll take an expression from Ed. I wouldn't talk shit if I had a mouthful of it, but I quit. I'm like, this is not who I want as my peer group. I don't want to be an alumni of douchebags like this. I know there's some good ones out there, and we need them, but
I remember a fluid dynamics class that the instructor had an example that he had drawn on a whiteboard, and it was one fan blowing fluid at another fan, and asked the class what that was an example of. And I looked around like, it's got to be a trick question. I mean, seriously, if you're blowing one fluid from one to the other, it's a torque converter.
Torque converter.
Yeah.
Yep, all day.
And so anybody that I know in the real world would have just put their hand up and said torque converter. But I'm scared because I'm looking around thinking these people can't all have missed this topic.
Right.
So 30 seconds go by. I put my hand up and he says, what do you think it is? I said, I think that's a torque converter. And he said, very good. No one else in the whole lecture hall knew what that was. So I thought, yeah, this might not be my place.
This might not be my place. Yeah.
yeah, let's go work on torque converters instead, or something hooked up to a torque converter.
Right.
Right.
So I asked you to tell a funny story about roommates in college because you had lots of houses with lots of roommates
I went there.
and lots of cars.
We did. There was one apartment that I lived in. It was a duplex, and on one side there was 4 guys, on the other side there was 4 girls. And I think at one time we had 11 cars, 6 motorcycles, and 4 boats.
Hell yeah.
And it was one of the guys that lived there owned the place, and he was trying to rent the other side out. And he said, listen, some people are coming to look at this, and we can't have it looking like this, so we got to move stuff. And so we're hitching boats up to anything that had a trailer hitch on it, and we spent half an afternoon just moving
shit.
vehicles
Yeah.
down to some restaurant parking lot down the road. And so these girls come in, and we had set up a volleyball net in the backyard where all these dead cars were, and everything was amazing. We had outdoor deck, and we fired up a grill, and they were just, oh my, this is amazing. We're gonna move in. And so they left and signed a lease, and then we went back down to the parking lot and just started shuffling everything back in. It looked like a used car lot / junkyard, and so that was awesome.
Oh shit! Yeah, and so tell us about your first car.
Still have it. It's a 1964 Chevy C10 pickup truck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of updates on that, and hopefully get it running maybe this winter. But you get it back on the road. But that was something that I used to ride dirt bikes as a kid and did some crazy stuff. And my stepfather thought it'd be a great idea if he got me an old truck to fix up, that I'd quit doing stupid stunts on the dirt bike and fix the truck up so I could drive it. And that's exactly what happened. So learned how to do all my own repairs and still have that thing to this day.
That's awesome.
That's pretty
It's
cool.
fun, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the project with it? What are you doing with it?
Did a new drivetrain, updated the normal things, did steering, brakes so that it's safe to drive, and then did an LS swap and hope to put a BMW DCT transmission in it, 7-speed. And so just a nice, clean, starting, everyday, daily driver that I can drive around. That's all
that'll
it
be
is.
awesome.
Yeah, just fun.
So, fast forward racing. First big team you won a championship with?
First big team I won a championship was Automatic Racing out of Orlando, Florida, run by Joe Vardy. He's a legend in road racing. He was a drag racer before road racing. He's Firehawk champion, back-to-back, IMSA champion, driven everything with everybody over the years. And he was running a BMW team, and I was working for Sunbelt Kinetic Engines. Kinetic had bought us out by that time. And he came to us with an engine program. And we same kind of struggles we're going through today. We had BMW engines. We were trying to get everything to work like it was meant to, and we made that work. And in 2000, I think it was 2006, we won our first championship, or 7, somewhere in there, and it was a great deal. It was a fun project. I was in charge of powertrain controls, all the tuning, engine development at the engine shop, and worked with a great team of guys, and was a super fun experience. Great career booster for sure.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah.
And then you did. Where's Fallen and Rumbum?
Well, Fall Line actually built the car that we won the championship with that first team. So
okay.
Joe Vardy had that car built for a friend of his who decided not to race in Grand Am and sold it to the Automatic Racing team. So Fall Line had built that chassis. Fall Line Motorsports out of Chicago has had a great history of building championship-winning race cars. And when I started working with Joe, Fall Line was racing against us, but we did a sort of a co-development program. So Joe and I would share our knowledge with Fall Line. Fall Line, we all worked together to help get a better budget so that we could all win. And it worked out great. So I started to go to Fall Line and work on their pro racing effort. So same thing, it was back in the day when we were racing E46 M3 BMWs. Those were the current generation BMWs at the time. And we did that, went through. They did well, we did well. We left Automatic Racing. I left a year earlier. Joe stayed for another year. And I was planning to take a year off of pro racing. Ended up getting picked up by Kinetic Motorsports. They had racing new E92 chassis BMWs, so the V8 M3.
Oh, S65.
Correct, yeah. And so I worked on the team that did the development of that motor there. Joe got a job, or we had put a team together. One of our pro drivers, Matt Plum, put a team together for Louis Bacardi, and we were called Rum Bum Racing. And we started that team with an E92 M3 BMW. First race with a new team, new car, new driver, Gian Bacardi. He won his first pro race that he ever entered. So
That's pretty fucking cool.
We're at Daytona International Speedway, and the year before he didn't know how to drive a stick shift.
Oh wow!
And so our driver Matt Plum had been his driver coach, his life coach, his everything, and we went on to win several races. We have tons of wins with that team, and I think we won a championship in 2012, 11, somewhere in there. Raced the BMW through all those years. Concurrently, I was working with Fall Line on their BMW programs and had great engine program done by Ron Hutter Racing Engines.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good. Another great person to work with in this industry, and we had a good time with that. The BMW became uncompetitive due to balance of performance changes within Grand Am. We bought a Porsche 997. Same thing. We went to work on that car and did great with that car as well.
Won the championship again.
I think we won a championship with that car too. Yeah.
And it's called Rum Bum Racing because Bacardi rum.
Yeah,
that's what I was picking up on.
Yeah,
so,
it is.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
So
yeah.
Louis Bacardi was the person who put the team together. So
Gotcha.
It was his funded team. Yep. Yeah, it was
That's
a fun deal.
crazy.
Yeah, it was fun times.
I can't imagine. Wait, I'm trying to think of what question to ask. Alex, I'm gonna let you go.
Okay, so have you continued to do that with race teams and everything like that, or have you taken a step back? Or
I still do it. The whole atmosphere of pro racing now has changed a little bit. So
Okay.
we're not really developing cars. We're not developing powertrains. We are racing factory-built race cars.
Gotcha.
So we have most of the series that are pro racing series now are just based on a homologated car.
Gotcha.
And so you can pick your car. You can pick your Porsche. You can pick an Aston Martin. You can pick a Mercedes, and it's a homologated car.
Right.
So you have to show up at the racetrack with that car perfectly in line with the documentation. And so I still have really reasonable roles with these race teams.
Right.
I work for Team TGM, Ted Giovanna's Motorsports Now. We've raced several different versions of these cars. Currently, we're on an Aston Martin program. So we have a Vantage GT4 AMR built race car, and I make sure everything is running right. I look at the data. I make sure that the driver's data is good. I take care of onboard video. During practice sessions, we live stream video out of the car,
Okay.
so I'm in charge of that. And then I make sure that all the systems are functioning correctly. If the car needs updates, I have to do those. And when the race starts, I do fuel strategy with the crew. So we have our car chief, and we have a car chief for each car, and I just interface with them and let them know what the windows are for their fuel stops, and we sort of powwow while the race is going on and put our heads together and try to come up with a winning strategy.
That's pretty cool. So road racing is where it's at for you. That's what you like.
That's my primary,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, so I've done road racing primarily as my focus since 2003.
Okay.
A little bit of off-road racing with Herbert.
You've done some off-road racing
Yeah.
though.
Yeah,
Like what? 5 trips to Mexico? 6 trips to Mexico?
yeah, we did a bunch of that. That was a lot of good times. That was like a working vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that one's a little more challenging because you're trying to tune vehicles while you're drinking a lot of beer and eating
That's
tacos.
the problem, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you got to juggle the beer and taco in your
Yep.
hands while you're trying to do the tuning. So that one has its challenges for sure.
I have a customer that dropped a loader off with us, and he just he's back now from Baja, but same thing. He was down there for a race, and he's like, I'll be honest with you. He's like, if you need anything for the next 2 weeks, it's probably not going to happen. He's like, I got a lot of shit going on, and when I don't do that stuff, I'm going to be drunk and eating. So he's like, I'll just see you when I get back. He's
That's
like,
fair.
Whatever it needs to fix, just fix it and let me know when I get back. I was like, that's fair.
That is
Sounds good.
awesome.
Yeah, sounds like a good time.
Yeah, I've done Pikes Peak now 2-3 times.
Oh, that's
I would
right.
like to go to Pikes Peak. I think it'd be cool.
That is a really amazing
Yeah.
event. That is the equipment that people put together to run up that mountain is truly impressive.
I bet.
Is it pretty challenging on the engine management side? Is there any
Especially with the
tips and-
elevation change.
Yeah,
It
all
is-
tricks and stuff that you're
Oh,
having
it's
to do.
crazy. Yeah, the elevation is just the tip of the iceberg. If you obviously need to make more horsepower than you can actually connect with the earth. So
Right.
for me, we made this BMW that I think it was somewhere around 1,200 horsepower.
Oh, shit.
A little more. Rear-wheel drive only, not all-wheel drive. So my biggest concerns were traction control and making sure that all the systems, ABS worked and all the driver's aids worked, because things can go wrong really quickly. And
And it's steep.
It's all done. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It is. Yeah. If you spin out on the racetrack and you maybe get in the gravel trap, it's a bummer. You get pulled out and you get back on track.
Right.
At Pikes Peak, you don't go again.
No,
That's pretty much
Your
it.
day's done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that was a lot of challenges there for sure.
I remember my question. I was like, we just talked about it, and then it escaped me. Explain to our listener in IMSA what balance of power that IMSA manages. What does that mean?
And what's EMSA?
IMSA
IMSA.
is International Motorsports Association. So
There you go.
it's a sanctioning
This
body.
is me as a dum-dum.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who think that racing is either one of two things. You're either F1 or you're NASCAR. That's
Okay.
the only two options. But there's a ton of racing sanctioning bodies out there. And IMSA is actually owned by NASCAR. And,
Okay.
And IMSA is a series that has been going on forever. It's a long-standing organization. And so what IMSA does to balance the performance of cars is the manufacturers submit their homologation paperwork and they do a testing program, and there's other organizations involved. I won't get into it, but in the end, when the cars show up at the racetrack, they should all be to the spec that would be equal in
Right.
performance on track. So that if a top level driver can do a lap time of 121 around Road Atlanta, then another driver should be able to do the same time in a different car, or the same level driver.
Yeah.
And so after race events, they gather the data, they look at segment times, they check everything from terminal velocity on a straightaway, middle corner speed, any kind of metric that would help them decide whether one car has an advantage over the other, and then they make minor changes, sometimes on a per event basis. So we might get an additional 10 kilos for the next race because our performance at Laguna was great, or we may get a different map. The manufacturers have several engine maps available.
Right.
And so usually the week before the event, we have an idea what we're going to get. And then when we get to the race, we have to make sure we comply with those.
So it's not just making as much horsepower as you can, making the car as fast as possible, and go out and try it. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah. And so it's inevitably it's more difficult.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because now you're within a smaller box, and now you're really nitpicking at the finer details. And so you're working on damper settings down to the most finite elements, and you're worried about a half a pound of tire pressure, and you're worried about a half a degree of camber, and so these are the things that we focus on now in this racing. Our category is GT4 or GS class, as they call it, in Michelin Pilot Series. So in our IMSA series, we're in the Michelin Pilot division.
Gotcha.
So that's a...
And there's a list of cars approved by IMSA.
That's correct.
Like the Mustang, the Porsche,
Mercedes.
Aston Martin, Mercedes. No Camaro this year?
Camaros are done. Yeah,
Camaro's done.
Yep.
What else is in there?
So these are cars that have to be a production car that
That's
the manufacturer is actually making for the public.
And then when they time out, they time out. If the manufacturer decides to make a new car, bring a new car in, they submit that. So the Aston Martin that we have is actually coming to the end of its lifespan, and there's a new version of that. So they call in that the Evo. And so that's another one available. Mercedes is coming to the end of its lifespan, I think, for the ones that we were using. In 2018, we won a championship with an AMG GT4 car, same team, TGM, that I'm with.
Right.
And we've hopped around from car to car, hoping to get a little better chance for our drivers. But in the end, it is pretty well equal. I mean, it seems okay. You may not have a great balance on your weekend, but the next weekend might be better. Or if you go to a longer track versus a shorter track, you may have an advantage.
Right.
Oh, McLaren, too. McLaren's in that.
McLaren's in that, yeah, you're right. Yeah, won the race. At
they
Laguna.
won, but you said they usually break.
They often break. They do. It's a common problem.
So they take, these cars are allowed, and then we're going to make changes to that car so that all the cars run, so that all the cars are competitive.
Yeah, for instance, the Porsche is just a flat six normally aspirated engine, small car, PDK gearbox. Our Aston Martin is a twin turbo V8 with an 8-speed, 8 HP. Well, it's limited to 6 speeds electronically, but it's a much higher performance car in a road car version, so they have to equalize that, and so that's what we do. So our car makes, believe it or not, a twin turbo V8 has been detuned enough to get down to a match for a 6-cylinder Porsche normally aspirated car.
That's so tough.
It is,
because it's a spec engine sealed, no engine program.
Right.
You don't get to tune it.
Nope.
They give you the tune.
Oh, they give you the tune.
They do. Yeah.
Okay.
Like they draw the tune out of the hat at the racetrack.
I hope it's not that random.
But sometimes...
we have felt like it's that random.
You're like, what happened?
Right.
The thing's a turd, and so now you're like air pressure, fuel stop strategy, and then I didn't find out till last weekend that they put a fucking restrictor in the fuel hose.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
So the pit stops have to be a certain length of time.
So you can only put gas in it this fast.
Right, at this rate. Yeah, that's all you can do.
So years ago when we won championships, a lot of it had to do with pit stop strategy, and having a great pit crew. And they've tried to lessen that effect on the racing program.
Gotcha, okay.
So the fuel can't fill any faster than a certain number, and they tech that. So especially if you do well or win the race, you're going to have to do that fuel stop in front of the officials after the race in tech.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's spec gas tank, right?
Yeah.
So they'll pump out, if you're in the top, evidently in the top 6, they pump out your gas tank to see how much gas you have left, and they might fill your tank to see how much it holds.
It'll actually hold. Yeah.
It's like, oh my goodness, it is like so. It is spec racing.
It's tight. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we try to make sure that we're on the mark within as close as we can.
Because I'm sure if you win and something's wrong, there's
Yeah.
going to be an issue.
Yeah, you get bounced.
Yeah.
We won Laguna. I don't know how many years ago it was. It was a while back, and we won it on fuel. It was
Okay.
just we had our strategy right. We did everything we could, and the driver did a great job of managing his position and saving fuel.
Right.
And we ended up winning on fuel economy. They tore that car down for hours, and they pumped it full, drained it out, pumped it full, drained it out. They measured it. They were down to using a vacuum cleaner to get the fuel out of the corners of the fuel cell.
Oh, wow.
And then they were pulling the foam out, the fuel cell foam, and squeezing the drops out of that.
Right.
And we passed every time. And after literally hours of that,
Right.
they finally let us go, and we got to keep the win. But
Yeah.
that was that tight. They were sure
That's wild.
that we had done something
They
wrong.
knew
Yeah.
you were cheating.
Yeah,
But you weren't.
No, and that's the struggle, is because from the other side of I get it, from the other side of the glass, it probably looks quite different, because we're doing these lap times, we're doing what we do, and we managed to finish, and other cars didn't. But what you have to take into consideration is if you're off the pace, if you're slower than the other cars, you're using less fuel.
Right.
And there's a lot of drivers who can really manage that.
Right.
They can manage the gap to the car in front of them, gap to the behind them, and they can coast, they can carry speed through corners, and so there's an art to it, and it's
absolutely.
so
yeah.
these guys are not only amazing race car drivers, but then they're also watching the fuel consumption. They call it out to me on the radio. I have a spreadsheet running the whole time, so I'm doing estimates of how long that's going to last, when they have to pit, how long it's going to take to refuel the car, knowing
Right.
where it's going to come in and how that's going to work. And sometimes these guys are just amazing, and then sometimes they're not. We did Daytona, the 24 Hours of Daytona in an Audi, and we had a whole crew of professional drivers from Germany. We had a guy that could, when we told him to save fuel, he could kill 10 seconds of his lap time and use more fuel somehow. It was remarkable, We had the same Joe Vardy that I've been working with for years. Joe's on the radio and said, he keys his mic and said, "I need you to save fuel." And he's behind the pace car. The guy's doing well. He's behind the pace car, and he comes back on the radio and says, "Okay, I'm saving fuel." And in the background, you could hear the engine. Wah! And Joe clicks the radio again. He said, "I can hear the engine. You're not saving fuel. Shift gears." And so this went on for hours, all through the night, and then we ended up off our fuel strategy and lost that race. We actually ran out of fuel right before the finish line. Yeah, we had to roll the dice. Same guy ended up passing the pace car under yellow, which was I don't know where they allow that in any racing in any world, but
Right.
he literally passed the pace car under yellow. We found out because the spotter's yelling at him from the tower, and then the spotter just says, "I'm so sorry. I did everything I could." And we don't know
can't
what's
make him
happened
not-
yet.
yeah.
We don't know what's happened yet because we don't see him. And then he comes down pit lane, and we're thinking, well, how did that happen? Because the pace car is now going by the front straight at Daytona. And so we told him to come in, and he decided he was going to pass the pace car and come in. And so that was a stop-and-go penalty plus, 3 days in the penalty box. And
Oh, boy.
so we went down a lap, and
Right.
and it took overnight we got our lap back, and then it was trying to do some dicey fuel strategy, and they didn't get the memo on how to save fuel. So
Oh, man.
that was the end of that.
What's the craziest engine or car that you've worked on?
From a performance standpoint, it'd have to be the Pikes Peak car, because that just has so much going on. It's a direct injection V8 twin turbo with 8 more supplementary injectors. It runs on alcohol.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's an ethanol car, and it's got sequential gearbox, paddle shift. It's got racing ABS. It ticks all the boxes.
Right.
You can't miss a trick on that thing. It's got tire pressure monitoring system that's really important, because if you have a puncture, those are public roads going up Pikes Peak, and so they're full of debris. You can
Right.
puncture anytime, and if you have a puncture, you don't know it until you get to a corner and it doesn't work. And so we have everything there. That's just a great program. It's got like I said, checks all the boxes, and so that was a fun development. A lot of things back to you can do anything you want. You literally just make as much horsepower you can. You go as fast as you can. And the rules are vaguely like that needs to look like a street car.
Right.
And so that was the most fun for me, for sure. Most technically challenging, which I like.
A lot of computers.
All the computers.
It looked like the anti-lag system on that was pretty cool too.
Oh yeah, I should have
I
mentioned
remember
that.
taking that apart, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that looks awesome."
Yeah, we did. The first year we were there, we just decided we didn't have enough anti-lag, and so I said, "Well, let me. I'm on it." And so it's a hot V turbo, so it's there's a lot of stuff going on in the middle of that engine. You got 2 turbos sitting in there, and you got a lot of other stuff. And so I went to the fabricator on the project. His name is Rich Group. Absolutely one of the most brilliant fabricators I've ever met. And I said, I need to get air into these exhaust system in the V. And instead of, like most good fabricators should say, no, you're crazy, he said, yeah, let me do that. I think I can do that. And so he made this giant air rail system. So we pump fresh air into the exhaust to then light off in the turbo to make the turbo a jet engine. Yeah. So on D-cell, this thing is, you're just turning the turbo into a turbine engine.
Right.
And so it had the most aggressive anti-lag I've ever seen. They would push the car. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah, it was pretty amazing. And like I said, the fab work was amazing. We had changed everything for that year to have this fresh air anti-lag system. And the crowds love it because it bangs, pops, crackles,
I bet,
does all
yeah.
the things. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
it was a fun project for sure on that.
Is that all Bosch Motorsports as well? On
It
that,
is,
then,
yeah.
or-
That has has same ECUs that we've been working with all this week for our BMW engines. It uses a Bosch Motorsports MS64 ECU, so I can run all the DI injectors and the high rail pressure controls, and the sequential gearbox paddle shift. Everything's done through that ECU. So
Oh
it's
yeah, that's DI and port.
It is, yeah. We couldn't get enough fuel mass through the DI injectors. We could get to about 800 horsepower, something like that. But the 12 to 1400 horsepower was the goal on alcohol, and that takes a lot of fuel mass. So we had to
that's a
add
lot
more
of fuel.
injectors. It is, yeah.
especially on alcohol.
Yeah, and then that was a new challenge too, because the again hot V. So you got a picture. There's turbos in the top, and then there's intake manifolds where there should be exhaust manifolds down on the side. And so early in the program, I went to the same fabricator, Rich, and I said, hey, I need 8 injectors stuck in here. And he looked kind of puzzled and looked at it. And when he came back, I didn't realize where the engine sits in the chassis exactly. And so those injectors were sitting on the side of the engine, and if anything had happened to the injector or the rail, it was right by the front brakes. And so he made these pockets for these injectors. They were fully enclosed. They were in these aluminum holes, and they were captured, and it looked like Fort Knox in there, so that nothing could happen to it. And he said, I figured I better hide those, because if a tire came apart and one of those got knocked off,
We'd have an issue.
We'd have a big fire. I
Yeah.
said, man, I like I like working with you. I like this style.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then it has Motec for dash, data display, and data acquisition. It's got Bosch Motorsports ABS on it. Various power controllers. We have Motec PDMs in there. We have ECU Master power controllers as well. We have a lot of things going on in that car. So we've pretty much picked up every catalog from every manufacturer and pulled some parts out of that.
That's crazy.
Are pretty much all the cars now running a CAN bus system then? Like all the modern race cars that you're doing?
Everything I do
Yeah.
does. Yeah, there's a lot of data that's got to get flung around. So I just did some design work recently on an old Ferrari we're updating, and it was confusing for the wiring guy because we had 3 or 4 vehicle buses and multiple things on each bus, and we had to go back and forth on that because it's just, it's like trying to assign addresses to people on the street. You got everything going on everywhere, and they all need to talk, and they all need to be in sync for everything to work. And if something drops out, you could lose your brakes, you could lose your fuel control system, you could lose whatever. So a lot of them are that.
All your new big equipment is CAN bus now.
Has been for years. For 20 years is CAN bus. Yeah,
Yeah.
CAN bus, when it works great, it works great. When it doesn't, it can be a pain in the ass, but overall it's a great system.
We swipe a lot of our parts from, believe it or not, heavy equipment. Our keypad, our membrane keypads all came from heavy equipment.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's where the racing people got that from.
Yeah.
Because if it works in a bulldozer, it's probably,
Yeah,
if it works in an
exactly.
earth mover, it's
Yeah.
probably going to be fine.
Yeah, all of our stuff's CAN bus.
Yeah.
And honestly, we don't have too many problems with it.
Well, and isn't that like the only OE manufacturer that uses Deutsch connectors from the factory is heavy equipment?
Doesn't Caterpillar?
Yeah.
It's all Deutsch?
Yeah, it's all Deutsch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't beat it. We use it all
No,
the time.
it's the best there is.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, like college, we're getting fancy. We're gonna do weather pack.
If I see a weather pack, I'll
hate
walk the
those.
fuck away.
Yeah,
I don't want no
seriously.
part of it. Yeah.
And you like get the assortment.
That stuff went out with sword fighting.
Yeah.
We still have it in the box. We've got an assortment in case we have to fix
Somebody's
something
shit
that
that shows.
someone brings in. Like,
Same thing with like Delphi. If you touch a Delphi plug, the fucking top's gonna break off it. Fuck.
Yep.
and you know, like, where do you get that shit?
Right. That's the problem for us. Like the Deutz, like all your main manufacturers use it for earth moving, and so like Cat, all my service trucks just have a Deutz connector kit on it. I think they're all the way up to like 16, and you just pull them out, put new ends on, whatever you want to do. It's the easiest thing. If you have to test anything or you need to, Deutz even offers spoons to spoon into the back of it so you can watch real time.
Nice.
I mean, it's just so fucking simple.
It's a great solution.
It's easy.
Yeah.
That's the connector. Has Alex seen a motorsports connector?
He's probably seen some that I've been working on in the past, but those
Have you
are
seen that shit?
22 gauge wire, 22 to 24 gauge
Like
wire.
when I
and
see
stuff.
that shit, I run.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
fuck that.
You need some magnifiers on to
Yeah.
see that stuff.
It is the tiniest pin, the tiniest wire, the tiniest crimper mandrel, and it has to be perfect. But it's durable when it's done.
Right.
No, it's great. Yeah, so you can seal them all up. It's fantastic. Everything's strain relieved. I'm working on a project now for an old Mazda historic car, a 792P 4-rotor car, and it was done with the mil-spec connectors of the 90s. And
They had wire that small?
back then it was mil-spec connectors, and it was 16 gauge terminals, a lot of them. And so you can't get it anymore. So I'm redoing it with current day stuff, 22 gauge, 20 gauge wire. And it is just, for me, it's just misery because it's time consuming, it's fiddly, it's just, and every wiring guy out there is already booked up for the next year. So when there's a time crunch, you just have to do it. But yeah, they're fiddly little bits.
What when you said wiring guys booked up for a year, what is your finger on the pulse of the current market in racing, wiring, performance engines? Like, what my experience, and I'm probably Alex would agree, when COVID started, we were busy and we could get parts. And then 2021.
Wow, 2021 with COVID.
Yeah, I thought that. But that was my record year. So guys were dragging whatever project car they haven't been working on for 10 years.
Out of the woods.
They're like, we're going to work on this car. And we did 3 Ford Flatheads that year. And I've never done one.
Right.
I was turning them away because I was like, that thing's junk. I just did one. I know what to look for now.
Right.
You need to start over. But you could get the parts too.
Yeah.
And then 2022, they're like, oh, we're getting caught up, but it's on back order because of COVID and we don't have the staffing. And big manufacturers like CP Carrillo, Scat,
Right.
Callie's, all had this supply chain breakdown later. And now, I don't know how we morphed into, I have vendors that's not a stocking item anymore.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely with us too.
It's not shelf stock.
Yeah.
You order it, and then when we get enough orders, we're going to make that part, even though it was something you could buy at Summit last week. And have you seen something similar in? And that was a 2-part question, but have you seen something since COVID and racing and computers and?
It's been an epic disaster. We had a couple of years there where there was a full stop on producing wire, and so we couldn't even get order wire to make harnesses. Electronics all disappeared for a number of years. I have one of my biggest customers is Mazda Motorsports. We build they build global MX-5 Cup cars, so it's a spec race series. It's just Mazdas, it's just MX-5s. They're all identical, and we have to provide. My company provides ECUs, wiring harnesses, throttle bodies, the electronics to turn that car into a race car.
Right.
And same Bosch ECUs that we were just talking about, couldn't get them. They were on back order. We would get lead times of 6 months, 8 months, a year. And so we had purchase orders that were open for 18 months. I think we're just finishing up a purchase order now from 2022.
Holy shit.
And so they were dribbling them out. I get now ECUs still 2-3 at a time, but there was a dead spot there where we had to stop producing cars. We were calling up customers who wrecked their cars on the racetrack, to see if they'd pull the computer out for us, and we would rent it from them for another customer, because we couldn't finish and deliver cars.
That's wild.
And so there was a global shortage of all those things.
But I agree with you, like 2020, 2021 right in there, we were just absolutely crushing it. And there was, wasn't really a shortage of anything. And then 2022 rolled around, and it's been downhill ever since. Like that one new service truck I bought, the DEF tank, if it got below half, it would say it was empty. And so we took it to Peterbilt, and we're like, hey, you guys got to fucking fix this. And they're like, we can't. They're like, if you turn this into warranty, this thing's going to fucking sit here for a year, maybe 16 months. He's like, keep it full, or you can let it sit here. I was like, well, I can't afford to let it sit here, so all right.
Wow.
And same thing, we had like the lights would be real intermittent, the headlights on the truck, and they would always be on low beams, but if you had them on high beams, they'd be super intermittent. They had a wiring issue. Well, they couldn't fix the wiring, and Peterbilt wants to send a new harness. No harness. And that was another 2-year wait to get a harness. And then finally, randomly one day I got a call. They're like, oh, is this Alex DBM? I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, your harness is in. And I was like, we didn't order a harness. And he's like, no, the headlight harness for that Peterbilt. I was like, oh, that. Yeah, sure.
I forgot about it.
Yeah, it literally was 2 years later. I almost have the thing paid off, and they just now have the fucking wiring harness for it for the headlights. But same thing, yeah. They're just like, oh yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It's not available.
What does that look like moving forward? Is this an intentional?
I think it is.
We're trying to. I mean, this is conspiracy theory, and I don't want to feed that. But
Right.
Is this intentional? That fucking rooster.
I know. So I tell you, it's like
He
you live in Little
knows.
Tijuana, dude.
He knows.
Is
Like,
it-
oh, they're having a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let him know that's like 5:45.
Yeah.
It's 5:45. It's 5:45. It's
All the
5:45.
times I've been here, I've never heard the rooster till just now.
Yeah.
It's
He's
like-
always fucking going when we're podcasting.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he knows.
Nice.
Every
Yeah.
time.
Like, dude,
The sun doesn't come back up for another fucking 12 hours.
we know the sun's
Yeah.
up. You don't have to tell us. Oh my goodness. But it's almost like a planned. I don't know why though. Why, like Howard's Cams owns Howard's Cams. It's not. I know that since COVID, a group of investors put some money together, and they went after. It's called Performance Brands, and they went after all the manufacturers that they could pick up. And
Right.
so, big one was Edelbrock.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then they picked up Holley, and then they picked up MSD, and then K1,
So this group of investors bought all these companies.
but they're not engine people. It was like,
Right.
how do we make money? We'll downsize them. We'll get rid of the seasoned employee that makes too much money, that
Right.
knows what he's doing, and we'll get some high school kids to surface cylinder heads. That didn't work out well. People still buy them, but you got to rework the brand new head because it's junk.
Right.
They bought all this stuff up, but like where I was going with this was Howard's Cams is Howard's Cams,
Right.
and a big block Chevy cam for a boat.
Right.
You think,
Probably have one.
and so they sold everything off the shelf in 2021 and 2022. They couldn't get the steel.
Yeah.
We don't have any blanks. We don't have any billets. We don't have any cores. We can't make the cam.
Right.
Now the big block Chevy cam, he's like, oh no, we don't stock those anymore. It's made to order. Like they decided their inventory level is 0,
Right.
and maybe they decided that they had more money in the bank with less inventory.
And that's probably true because a lot of states, unlike and counties, that's why all those
Get taxed on inventory.
get taxed on inventory. You get taxed on sales of things that you don't have already. So a lot of these companies won't keep them in stock because they don't want to pay taxes on them to sit there.
But how many sales do you lose because you don't have it? Because I just call
But if nobody else has it,
well, I call someone else
Right.
typically on a big block Chevy because someone has it.
yeah, someone has it.
But
Yeah, that's always been the business model. If you don't have it, you can't sell it. So
Right.
why have a business?
Right.
So it doesn't that if that's the goal, it doesn't make any sense.
I don't understand. The corporate deal does. They wrecked it. They've wrecked every company they've bought. But why doesn't Howard's want to stock a cam for a big block Chevy?
Right.
And so I don't call them anymore.
Yeah.
They might have it now, but he's like, no, we don't stock any. It's just a weird Motec you couldn't get for a long time.
It was a tough deal. Yeah, Australia kept closing down, if any little thing happened, then the whole place was shut down.
Right.
And so they couldn't assemble product. They couldn't get semiconductors. They couldn't. When they did have semiconductors, they would continue to shut down, so the labor wasn't there to assemble them. That went on for 2 years.
Do we think as a group it's going to get better?
No, I don't think so. I think it's gotten worse. Like, even the other day, I was at Summit picking up paint for my service truck, and I needed 4 gallons. And the guy was like, well, we only have 3. I was like, well, on summit.com, it said that you have 4 here. I would like all 4. And he's like, yeah, we don't. We can't find it. I was like, all right, well, can I get quartz then? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, you want to put a Q where the G is? And he types it in, and he's like, oh, yeah, we have 16 of those. How many do you want?
All of them?
I was like, well, I need a gallon. It's probably 4.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I could probably do that. I was like, cool, let's do that then.
How many quarts do you need? I need a gallon. He's like, how many quarts is that?
That's exactly what it says.
We don't have gallons.
Yeah, that's literally, he's like, no, we're out of gallons,
Out of
remember?
gallons. Yeah.
I was like, fuck, man.
Yep.
Oh, that's what's happening. So if this is really going in the shit, like, how do you prepare for that?
I don't know.
That's a tough one. For me, my industry has improved. So I'm getting shipments of ECUs. Stock is on the shelf to order in America. It's getting better on my side for the electronics. That industry is getting a little more stable. It's rare to find out that somebody doesn't have something in inventory that I need for a race project. It's coming back. Everything's a lot more expensive. Everything just went up across the board. Mm-hmm. And as you say, like, the service is crazy. I remember calling and saying I need an ECU, and they said, we don't have any. I said, okay, well, that's a bummer. I was going to order a marine ECU. Oh, we have those.
Right.
And so you're like, awesome. How many of those do you have? I have 3.
I'll take
Great.
them.
I'll take those.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'll take those.
Yeah.
Because this could be a marine application just as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a tough call. Like, is this all intentional? Have they throttled the supply chain? Maybe, but it just doesn't make sense from a profit standpoint. Like, what if that's what's happening? What's the end goal? What's the aim? Why is that happening?
I think the biggest thing, as far as what I've seen, is to get your smaller companies out of the way and deal with a few large corporations instead of 10,000 mom and pop businesses. They deal with 3, and Caterpillar's the same way. They want maybe 30 years ago they had probably 600 dealerships. They want 12 because it's an easier situation for Caterpillar as a whole to deal with those 12 dealerships than it is for 600 mom and pops. And they get to control the stock of parts. They get to control what dealers get them. Because I was looking for one of my buddies, Bryce. He needed a def sending unit, and I called. They're like, yeah, they're out of stock. It's a 6-month back order. So I called one of my really good customers that we have 2-3 guys there every day, and I was like, hey, do you mind if I fucking order this on your account? And I'll just take it off our labor rate or whatever. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. So I called in, machine downed it with my buddy's serial number. I got it 2 days later.
Wow.
Wait, one guy could buy it and not in stock for the other guy.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh,
and we see that shit all the time.
Wow.
But I think they just don't want to deal with the small guy. They want to sell, when you have like the Nevada gold mines, which is Newmont and Barrick together, they sell probably tens, if not hundreds of $1 million in parts to them. So the one guy that needs this $400 part, well, we probably won't fuck with you. We're going to save it for these guys that buy a fucking ton of parts. And, and maybe when the supply chain comes back, or if it does, it probably will trickle back out. But they're not going to piss off the guy that spends $100 million for the guy that spends $400.
Right, and by that time, like you said, they probably have weeded out a lot of these poor.
That's the problem. Yeah.
I don't know. Your industry is golden, right? As long as, and we could talk about this, Teslas. As long as they're building Teslas, you're going to be mining.
Yep,
you're going to be burning diesel.
Yep.
To get lithium.
And we are going to more of an electric side at the moment. We have electric dozers. They've had electric haul trucks for forever, but it's still a diesel power plant that pushes it. Electric haul trucks are just using the exact same thing. It's a locomotive. Yeah. You're using the exact same engine. You're using the exact same generator. Everything a locomotive uses, we're using. It's just trickling down to, there are some just electric things, but it's very niche construction related. Like if you have to do like if you're inside of a building and you have to tear something out where you can't have diesel going, they make electric bobcats that make electric, excavators, things like that. But they're very niche. It's not something that your everyday guy is going to buy.
What do you think about Tesla?
Me?
Yeah, the electric car, because now that's in racing.
Yeah, I mean, it's listen, it's going to be around for a long time. I think it's an interesting technology. I feel like if we really want to do the right thing for transportation overall in America, you would have some sort of hybrid. I mean, just like the locomotive, just like everything else. If we had a really efficient hybrid that really worked, I think it'd be a better thing. The Tesla model is interesting. Obviously, it's super popular. People love it. I've driven them. They drive fine. I feel like it's a bit of a one-trick pony. The thing just flat hauls ass off the line. But it doesn't do anything else great. They're fine cars, and if you have the right circumstances, if your electricity at your house comes from some real renewable resource, that's great. Knock it out. That's totally fine. Deal with the consequences down the road when the battery needs to be recycled or whatever they're going to do with it or buried. But until then, it's fine. I live down the street from a hydroelectric dam. And so for me, it'd be, okay, if I got a Tesla, I'd feel a little bit better about it. But there's most people in America are getting their electricity from a coal plant or
natural gas. We're natural gas here.
Exactly. So it just doesn't seem like a good long term.
If you're still using a hydrocarbon.
And I get the idea, because if you take 1 ton of coal and you make it into electricity, that output is more if you put it into electricity than if you took 1 ton of fuel and burnt that same fuel. I get the principle of it.
Yeah.
I just think there's applications for it, and there's a lot of places where like my industry where I'm driving service trucks out into the middle of the desert. I can't just charge it because there's nothing to fucking charge it on.
No.
I can put more diesel fuel in it though.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be here for forever at this point. I think we're past that crest. It's here to stay. I just think that there's a lot that can be improved on.
The optimist in me thinks that maybe the technology that's learned in the evolution of the EV will apply to some other application. Like if we did have a biodiesel hybrid, then now you have the battery capability, you've got the charging, you've got a better option for long-term transportation needs than just an EV. A plain EV is going to be I think it's going to be a struggle for America long term.
I do too.
We don't have the infrastructure for it.
No.
There's a lot of hurdles to overcome. But again, if I'm just being purely optimistic, hopefully the technology gained by the EV market evolving will trickle into other streams.
I feel like the EV situation we have right now is like late 80s into the 90s gas engines where we have fucking smog pumps and all this shit. None of it really worked that well.
Yeah.
It served a purpose.
Yeah.
We learned a lot from it, but we don't use it anymore. We found better solutions to that problem.
And that's probably where we are in the EV market. I don't know a lot about it. I haven't studied a lot about it. We were seeing it in racing, so we now have hybrids we have prototype hybrids that are incredibly complicated. These cars go around the paddock silently. It's a little freaky to watch them, and then they launch out of the pit box full electric, and they make it probably about to the end of pit lane, and then the battery kicks over to the ICE engine, as we call it, internal combustion. So it's coming to racing just because people want it there so badly.
Well, Dakar this year too. They had electric bikes, they had hybrid cars, they had all kinds of stuff. Like, it was cool. It was definitely really cool to see. So I think it'll come around, but I think we're a ways away from it being an everyday thing for everybody.
Agreed. Yeah. That's a long way off.
Yeah.
I like to hear the noise though. I want to hear a V8 rattling.
Yeah.
Or a diesel with a turbo spool.
Yeah. I agree.
But we're sort of a minority, right? Like
Absolutely.
In that world, for the average American, I think a car is an appliance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're just going to go pick out that one.
Well, and when you get to big cities, people don't own cars even.
Right.
Yeah, there's there is public transportation here, but it fucking sucks. Right. You're probably getting shanked on it.
They're getting Ubers. They're walking around. I totally get it. Or they're ride sharing in other ways. But yeah, for the average American, I think the car is just is a necessary evil.
Yep.
Because we don't have great public transportation. So the Tesla, for some of those people, are just like, hey, look at that. I don't have to put gas in it. This is amazing. And so it's an impulse buy. Like, they don't think long term how that's going to cost or what that's going to affect, or if they can even charge it where they live.
Right.
Like Chicago last winter.
Exactly.
You get these are things that if you're really into Teslas and that's your thing, then those topics are a little tough to handle.
Right.
When the gas is $6 a gallon, like we just saw this past week, then they're the champion.
Right.
Well, you won this round.
But it is crazy to think about because, like, with what, like we were talking about, a little bit of a conspiracy theory. Why is Tesla never invited to like all these like summits and all this stuff for like green energy when you have Ford, GM, all these things that don't know what they're doing? I mean, they literally everything they have. Fucking the F-150 was a flop. All this stuff where you have Tesla, who is the head front of everything, and is releasing their patents. They're doing all this stuff so that, hey, if you want this battery, you guys can fucking copy this battery.
Sure.
And yet they're not invited to any kind of summit or a green
because-
summit or anything.
It's because of Elon Musk.
Right.
Because
He's a polarizing figure, for
he
sure.
was left, and he's like, the left's a bunch of fucking idiots.
Yeah.
I'm not a lefty anymore.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you don't get invited anymore.
Right.
And he's like, I'm still the fucking smartest guy in the room.
Right.
They're like, you're not invited.
But you get a guy like that, too, and I mean, he's no different than everybody else because when you take Twitter or anything like that, like the Twitter version in China is completely censored. They have their own Twitter that they don't get to see our Twitter. You go to somebody like India, same thing. They have their own Twitter. They don't have our Twitter. We can't communicate because it's all about money. So these people will approach them and say, hey, for X amount of dollars, it's not even X amount of dollars. They're saying we'll allow Twitter in our country if you monetize, or you don't allow this to be monetized, and you take this out of it, so they can't see this. So it's everything has to do with money.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. So, what's your best one-liner? You had two yesterday.
The problem with me in one-liners is they
It
just
has
come,
to be spontaneous.
they come
That's
right
the same
out.
problem with me. If somebody asks one, I have a bunch of them, but I can't tell you one offhand.
No, and I should write them down because people try to repeat them back to me
Yeah.
even the next day, and I'm like, I don't even remember saying
Right.
that. I don't know.
Yeah, remember, we were on a dyno last night, and I was like, well, we should make a poll before we go, and Dale wanted to leave. Like, he wanted to peel out because it was like he was on overtime again. He was into nap time, evening nap time, and like the motor's on the dyno, it's ready to light off, and you're like, the bomb's loaded and the lighter's lit, and we're gonna make a hit.
Yeah, that's something like that. Sounds
It was
like me.
funny. That was funny. Oh man! All right, so I asked you this earlier. You're in college. You had roommates. You had a roommate named Harriet.
Yeah,
She had a voice because you can do her voice.
she's a Southern girl. Yep. So
And you had another evil roommate that was female. I don't know.
not evil, just a little, rambunctious.
How do you have two female roommates in college?
Here's how it happened. So when you go to Georgia Tech, they don't have enough student housing for everybody, and so before the year starts, I had gone through my freshman year, and you're guaranteed housing for your freshman year. They don't want you to have to live on the streets of Atlanta, or maybe they do now. I don't know. But back then they didn't want you to live on the streets, so they would guarantee you housing your freshman year. The next year they have a lottery, and if you get picked, if you get a room, you get a room. If you don't, you have to go find a place to live.
Right.
And I didn't find out I didn't have a room until it was time to start
Oh,
fall quarter. And so I, for several weeks, was living out of the trunk of my car and sleeping on my friend's living room floor.
Right.
And so is this other girl, Harriet. She's going to Georgia State University. She doesn't have anywhere. And so we were both like crashing on these people's couches. And so we said, let's look for an apartment. Found an apartment with another girl, Candy. And
I feel like
and here I am. Like
this started by typing in Pornhub.
right? I mean, and honestly, like zero of that went on.
Right.
And it was. I had a girlfriend that was okay with it, and I think I went to my mom and said, hey, I've got good news, bad news. I found an apartment. And my mom's like, oh, what's the bad news? I said, I'm sharing it with two girls, and she's like, well, if your girlfriend doesn't care, I don't either. More like how much is the rent? Can you afford
Seriously,
it?
what is this going to cost?
Yeah, exactly. Can you afford the rent, or am I in on this? And so we had this apartment, and it was hysterical. I mean, we were poor, we were all broke as a joke, so we didn't have anything to do, and it was a lot of mischief, just like pranks and stuff. And so the key part of the story is Harriet is a bilateral below the knee amputee.
Oh fuck!
So she has two artificial legs.
Right.
And so you would know it if you just talked to her in the street, you were hanging out, whatever. It wasn't an obvious thing.
Right.
But she was basically like that from birth. So It also wasn't a thing for her.
Right.
So it was just like,
Another day.
This is me. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is me. And this, my legs are made out of something else other than yours. And so, a lot of funny things happened. So, I would come home from late night. She'd be out partying, and you'd see like this random leg hanging out. and they look real. Like these prosthetic legs look real. And so you'd be like, oh, Jesus, there's
a fucking leg right here.
So you're half in the bag, and you're walking in, and you're like, oh, there's a severed leg in there. And so, things like that would happen over the time. The funniest one of all is I'm downstairs eating breakfast. We didn't have a TV. We didn't have anything. So I'm just literally sitting on probably a futon eating cereal. Harriet comes down the stairs on her knees, on her leglets, and says, Ed, have you seen my legs? And I was like, they're in the oven.
What?
I had gone down to get breakfast, gone in the kitchen, and I look over and freaked out because there's legs with shoes and everything still on them.
Oh fuck!
Sticking out of the oven.
Yeah.
And at first I was just like mortified, like,
right.
Fuck, she's got in the oven.
Yeah.
I recognized her shoes. I was like,
yeah, I recognized her shoes.
And so I was like, son of a bitch. And so I left them there and just went and had my cereal. Candy had before she left for work somehow thought it was funny to take Harriet's legs and stick them in the oven, and then
it's
just went to work.
Funny. It seems like something I would do.
It was that was one of the there's a lot of college roommates, a lot of college stories. That one's probably one of the funniest ones.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
All right, are we wrapping it up?
Sounds good.
We're T for time. Drew's gonna get on the T and
you're getting on the T?
One donation of red blood cells, and then a consult with Kara. I'll call your wife.
R.I.P. to Tara.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We can do it.
If the wife is on board, then I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, you got to give it a shot.
Yeah. We can do it. We can get it done.
You're a pretty young guy for all that.
Yeah. It's on the low side though, so I mean,
this T's in the shitter.
Mine was.
I'm trying to do
everything.
everything. Trying to do everything naturally to increase, and nothing's happening. So.
Yeah. Testosterone is natural. You're just getting a little helper, little bumpski.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. No.
All right, so I'm going to remind our listeners and viewers, send questions. We can also do call-in guests. You can call in, get on the horn, ask a question, make a comment, share your concerns if you're worried about Alex's hair.
Yeah.
It's a contest with how old is he? 6? 5?
8.
8.
My 8-year-old, yeah.
He's in a contest with his 8-year-old. That's why he's not cutting it. He does plan to improve his grooming at some point.
Yeah. At the moment, it's not going great.
He looks like, what'd you say he looked like?
Marv from Home Alone when he's getting fucking shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's bad with the hat off.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.